is Marsha Stonehill with Melt the Ice. Today on Operation F.L.O.W, I have Dr. Vivienne Pierce McDaniel back with me, and she brought with her two very powerful women. First, Dr. Frances E. Montague, who is a retired nurse who started her journey more than 50 years ago. Also with us is Dr. Angel Daniels, and she is employed with Bon Secours Memorial College of Nursing. Thank you so much for being with us today here on Operation F.L.O.W. And please tell us what you're here to share.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I am here to share information and have a very frank conversation related to anything around diversity, equity, inclusivity, and me as a Black woman and my journey in nursing.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Frances Montague, and I too have had a long journey in nursing and am willing to share that, share the ups and downs, and interested in diversity, equity, and inclusiveness, and just how things have changed over the years since I've become a nurse up until this point in time when I've a retired nurse and can look back at some of the experiences I've had. And thank you for having me.
And I'm here as usual to share with you anything that is going to dismantle racism, that's going to espouse diversity, equity, inclusivity, and justice in nursing and in the society at large. But I also want to just give a shout out for Black History Month, and also to mention my favorite nurse and the person who I feel opened the door for me to become a nurse, and that is Eliza Mahoney, Mary Eliza Mahoney. I don't know why I tend to call her Eliza as though I know her. But just wanted to give a shout out to Black History Month, and also to let you know that we are wearing red for heart health. So
I'm sorry, I didn't know about that and didn't wear red today.
And I'm sorry and apologize for not letting you know. But you have a red, your heart, and
my glasses.
And your glasses.
So please do tell us, perhaps Dr. Montague, you would be willing to share 50 years ago up to today. What are the highlights of what you do want to point out in the name of the progress that we've made, the progress that we need to make, where we still need to draw heavy attention and work really hard? Please bring to the surface and to light for us in this.
Okay. Thank you. I think I can start with my where I wanted to go to school when I graduated from my high school. So I've known all my life that I wanted to be a nurse. I taught with a couple of other things like English instructor, and then home economics and that sort of thing, and I always came back to nursing. So when I graduated high school in the year not really, in 1970, since I've said it's been a long time ago, I wanted to go to a diploma school of nursing because they were big at that time. And if anyone doesn't know, it's a 3-year program, and it's hospital-based. So you get to do more actually, or they got to do more actually hands-on, I guess, than all of the other didactics. They had to have the courses and stuff, but they weren't necessarily college credits because they were given at a school. So I applied to a local hospital, and I don't know, should I say the name of it? I applied to Johnson & Willis Hospital because none of those schools are in progress anymore. Now, I know Bon Secours has a school of nursing, but the whole perspective of that has changed. So I applied to Johnston Willis and got, all my little letters and everything in and got accepted. Well, no, I didn't get accepted. I got invited for an interview. So I had gone down for my interview and, spent my day doing what I was supposed to do, interviewing, testing, et cetera, and waiting for my return letter so that I could know that I was going to go to the school of nursing at Johnston Willis. Well, when my letter came, it regretfully declined me, saying that my psychological testing showed that I would be better in an LPN program. Well, that broke my heart because LPN was not what I wanted to be. I had been influenced by some of the nurses that I'd seen around here, and being in a rural area, I grew up in a rural area, and in the last few years have returned and live in the same county that I grew up in. So there was one nurse, I guess, one Black nurse at our public health department. And as I realized now, she was like a nursing assistant. Later on, there was another nurse, and I think she was an LPN to start and may have become an RN later, by leaving, I don't really know. But I know she was one who was there also. And I was very impressed with both of those. And the last one who I said was an LPN, I just loved her. So those people influenced me to become a nurse. So I wanted to be a nurse like I thought they were. And I did not realize at that particular time their rank. But I said to my mom, that's not what I want to be. And my mom has always been a great promoter of education and doing what you want to do. And she said, then you don't have to. So then that's when I looked back. I only applied at one school. We didn't have money to be applying all over the place. So I applied at Johnston Willis, didn't get accepted, looked over things, applied at Norfolk State, and got accepted there. And that's where I went. So at that time, the hospital schools of nursing were just taking 1 or 2 students per class per year. And later, as I graduated from Norfolk State, I met friends when I started working who had graduated from those schools being Johnston Willis, Stewart Circle, Richmond Memorial, and some of the others. And they had graduated 1 or 2 per class. So as it is today, it's progressed. We can go to nursing school wherever we qualify. And I'm not going to say wherever we like, because we still have to apply, go through the testing, compete and all of that. And actually, schools still have quotas. They still have quotas. It's just a little bit bigger, and they have a different way of doing it. They have a percentage of home schools and private schools students they take. They have a percentage of students of color that they take. And they are only going to take the cream of the crop. And they can have a 3.9, but if there's somebody with a 4.0, they're going to take that. And that 3.9 is going to get sidelined. So there's still some of it. It's just handled in a different way. And they don't have to really make up reasons. I don't know what my psychological testing showed. I'm a Black girl from a rural area, and I'm in there with I don't know how many other white people who were interviewing me. So I might have been a little shaky and a little discombobulated at the time, because that's not what I was accustomed to. Even though I grew up in a rural area where we had no boundaries in our neighborhood, we all talked to each other. We weren't necessarily friends, the adults weren't necessarily friends, but everybody knew each other, everybody talked to each other. So going there where I'm with this bunch of strangers, I don't know what my psychological testing showed. I only wish I had saved the letter, because today I would like to go back and say, hello, here's your LPN, But that was one of the things that I did face and when I started in my education. And like I said, education hasn't, the process is still there where there can be a cap on who is accepted into the programs. So.
Wow. very, very, just something to think about, you know. So I have a question for you. I appreciate that you shared a lot about your journey in nursing. You seem to have come a very long way. And so my question to you is, how, you said that you grew up in a rural setting, and of course, I always love to hear stories about that, because so did I. And I know Marsha did. I'm not sure about Dr. Daniels, but yeah, I think she grew up in Richmond, and her and my husband seem to think that's a city, but we're not going to go there. So, so what I will ask you is to just share a little bit about what it was like when you were growing up.
Okay. Growing up, we don't really live in well, we live in communities, but not in developments. So you have your house, and you know, it could be half a mile before the next one. Even though things have changed. On my road when I grew up, we were like 3 or 4 houses, and my road is 0.6 of a mile long. Now, you know, I walk sometimes on my road, and I think I counted the other day like 17, 18 mailboxes. So that's a big change from when I was a kid. But we did have everybody living on our road. You know, we lived up not too far into the road, and then at the end there was you know, white families and that sort of stuff. And, you know, different people own the land from different times. But we all played together. We played together. They came to our house. We went to their house. We even ate together, you know, when it was lunchtime. If they were at our house, they ate. And, you know, we were not rich by any sense of your imagination, but we didn't know that we were poor by any sense of our imagination, because everybody ate here. You know, the Black kids on our road ate here, the white kids on our road ate here. And whatever we had, they ate. You know, if we had northern beans, which I still love to this day, they ate northern beans, you know. And whatever we had, you know, that's what we ate. And even though we did not go to school together, we did not go to church together, we did play. And because it's rural Virginia, and because tobacco was one of the major crops when I was little. Now, I never worked in the tobacco field. You know, people didn't hire us. I guess Dad didn't let us go because we were all girls. I have a brother who's like 6 years behind the youngest girl. So he went later, but the girls never really went. But they worked in, as kids, they worked in tobacco fields together. Now, many times our Black kids were working for the parents of the white kids they worked alongside, but they still did that. And we got to kind of know each other a little bit. We did not go to school together because our schools were segregated until my final year of high school, which started in '69. And then that was when we all went to school together full time, or completely, I should say, because there were a few students who had, you know, as in all other areas, integrated the schools. So you had Black students at the white public schools, but I cannot remember any white students at the Black public schools, but we had a couple of white instructors who were there. So, but our last year we went to school together, and to this day, we still are all friends. You know, we are the only class that has had a reunion about every 5 years. We were actually planning one in 20 when COVID hit. So we were gonna do it up. It's gonna be big. So in October, we went to the homecoming game. October '69, we went to the homecoming game, and we were gonna plan things throughout and be prepared for graduation in '70, which didn't happen. But in '71, we did have our celebration. We celebrated our 50th anniversary, even though it was our 51st. So we have stuck stayed together sort of, and we recognize each other. We talk to each other, and because there are a few of us still here in the county, we see each other. We can relate. Actually, we can contact each other. I was thinking the other day about contacting one of the guys about a question I have. So we can do that. And we work together in different organizations, on boards and that sort of stuff. And that may be, and we may be actually, I'm not sure, the only class who still stays that much together. Now, of course, we've changed like everybody else, even though we're in Little Amelia, we've changed like everybody else in that it's easier now to have those relationships, and we see more and more interracial relationships as we go throughout the time. But as far as racism, I think it was here all the time. We just didn't recognize it as racism because we didn't understand really what it was. But I don't think that ever wasn't here, and I can't say that it has completely gone away, because there are some people here, I am sure, who would really rather not talk to me and would really rather not hear anything that we say. But we are people, and we're learning to live with each other. And because we're in rural Virginia, and we really can't get away from each other, and I think we have a lot of churches. We are all Christians, so we use the love of God to put us together, and we stay together for that, and we recognize each other and support each other. I don't know, we have a NAACP organization chapter here, and we have, I don't know how many, but we have everybody in that organization is open, it's integrated, it's not necessarily all Black. And then other organizations that we have, anybody can join. So it's just an individual thing. So, but the one thing that has definitely changed, when I grew up, we really still had, and I can remember as a kid, white and Black toilets. We had toilets for white people at the courthouse, and we had the dungeon toilets for the Black people at the courthouse. So if you were in the village, you had to go to the dungeon toilet, which was dark and dreary. But we don't have those now. You can just go wherever there's a toilet. So we have those kinds of things. So racism in that perspective, I don't know that it's completely gone away, but not knowing race, not understanding racism as we did not understand it growing up, is not gone away either. Does that make sense? I mean, that's kind of how I see it here in America.
Dr. Montague, if I may build off of some things that you said there, I know as I have embarked on this social justice journey myself and sought to understand racism more, and especially the concept of systemic racism, it's been perplexing to me and very interesting to, when you're talking to certain people, one of the things they might say is, well, I'm not racist because we played together as children. And they don't understand then why are things getting so much worse now? So there's this complete and total disconnect from the reality of what was actually happening, that they're even talking about a time of during segregation, right? Or talking about a time not far after segregation when there's still so much work to do. And people focus so personally, in my opinion, about whether they're racist, they're missing the whole point of what is happening as far as the racism that we need to recover from and resolve and eradicate and move on from. Am I correct in these statements?
I think that you are, when you start to talk in those terms, the broad picture. And I guess I'm probably a victim of that too, from a small area and having moved back, because as I moved away, I did see a broader picture. I saw the little things that you could do. My one of my very first evaluations as a nurse, the nurse made it a point, my head nurse at the time, to say, now I don't compare you to anybody. This is all you. And throughout wrote about how I did not meet some of the same standards that some of the other persons met. Well, you didn't give us the same chance. I'm working days and nights or whatever I'm working. And then on the weekend, when I have a chance to be the charge nurse and shine, you bring the evening nurse to days to be the charge nurse, and I'm still not getting a chance. On days, there's a few older Black nurses that you have there that they might be in charge, but you don't give me the same chance. It's not out there that I have the same opportunity to prove myself. And I think sometimes when we make, and also social justice, where you're making rules and regulations and you start to look at it, it's not it's not the best cause for everybody. You with or without thinking about it, I can't tell the voters, the people, how they're voting and what they're thinking. But it's such that the law is made such that it protects one group of people. And when it protects one group of people, then the other group is not protected. But still, they say it's the best cause for everybody. So those things are still happening. And it also, you're right, individually, how you reach out and what you do individually may or may not make you feel that there's racism or racist ideas or connotations or anything. But then if you step back and look at it, it can be, because you got it because you spoke up, you pushed your way. But there's the person standing next to you who is quieter and won't speak up and won't push their way, and they won't get it. But the next person in line might be as quiet, might not push their way. They'll get it because of something else, their color, their skin, their age, whatever. And all of those are things that make a difference. So it's not equitable. It's not equitable. It's there for everybody, maybe. So I guess we would say it's equal, but if you don't know how to get it, you won't get it. And even so, and I don't know that these are necessarily local laws, but even sometimes with our elderly people, I have to go and help, or I will go and help. I guess I have to. I don't want to make it sound like I'm the only one who do it, because there are plenty of people here, but I will go and help them push through the system to try to get some things that are there and it's supposed to be available to them. And sometimes we have to push a little harder to get it. So I think equity is one of the things that, even if it's there for all, if you don't know how to access it, then you're still caught in those places that you're not getting what you need. And that is for everything. Now, as far as legal laws and pushing through court systems and all that, thank the Lord I didn't had to do that. But, I guess it's probably there as well. And sometimes when I read our local paper, and all our local people can do is print what they get from the courts, I can see, and I'm like, this person was driving reckless at 110. This one was driving reckless at 115. This one didn't have anything else, but they got 3 months in jail and a fine. And this one got to go home and pay a fine and lose their license for 30 days. Those kinds of things that are totally seem not to be equitable to me. So I don't know. And yes, so it is hidden. And racism is hidden within our justice system, within all of our systems.
Policies.
So it's policies, thank you. So it's there. And you got to dig for it, and you got to come out of it, and we got to help each other try to figure it out. That's sort of my take on it. And yes, having been here, I probably have some biases as well. And I probably have some blind spots as well that I am still trying to work through, so I can help people reach out and get what is available and what they deserve.
Well, thank you so much. That was a lot to take in, and I would love to hear what Dr. Daniels has to offer us.
Yes, I don't know if I can follow that road, but so, a little bit of my history, I've been in healthcare over 25 years, but I grew up, as Dr. Pierce McDaniel stated, in Richmond, the city of Richmond. But I grew up in the East End of Richmond. So it was called Churchill or East End, but it was mainly, the Black population with the more social determinants, more, lower financial status. I grew up in an area that was in the center. I lived in some houses in the center of the housing projects where most of the Black people live. But probably I didn't have any exposure to being with other white people, except for a few teachers in my elementary school. But it wasn't until I got bused to the other side of Richmond to integrate and try to integrate the white and Black students. Now, even during that time, I would say by the time I got in high school, it really stood out to me more because even though we were integrated, we were still segregated, and we segregated ourselves. Mm-hmm. So, all of the white students kind of just stayed to themselves in different areas. And we as Black students kind of stayed, now we integrated, we might talk here and there, but still it wasn't a lot of friendship development. I did not make a lot of white friends that I stayed in contact with. So I think a part of that stayed with me in my journey. In my mentality. So when I did go to nursing school, I wanted to be a nurse since I was probably a little girl playing with my doll babies. But I applied to Boston Core School of Nursing, and they rejected me twice. And on my third time, I got accepted. But I went to night classes, and it was a class of 45 students, and 4 of us were Black. Excuse me. And during that time, the ones who graduated on time were just 2, me and another lady. And the other 2 got held back for many different reasons. One didn't even make it out the program. So even during that time, I experienced a lot of inequities as a student that still transpires today, even as it's a BSN program. It was a diploma, now it's the BSN program. So when I first started working there full time, what I would say is that it was 90% white students. They had a criteria that was based on just, GPAs, standardized test scores. And when we went into the process of trying to diversify our student population, and me being the only Black faculty there, we went to a process and we started integrating more people of color in. And one thing that I heard a lot from different faculty members is now we're letting any nobody in. Mm-hmm. And I have had the Black students and other students of color come to me with situations because, again, I was the only Black full-time faculty there for 4 years, that felt like there was a lot of inequities. There was a lot of unfairness of where they would allow, some of the white students more resources, more extension on assignments, or less harsher grading. And the Black students felt like they weren't getting the same opportunity. They had to repeat classes. So it still transpires today, even in that setting.
Dr. Daniels, I have a question, if I may. Mm-hmm. When you said that about, they'll let any body in, are we in a space now where we can at least challenge that type of thinking? And have you been in spaces where people are receptive to understanding that as an extreme bias, and that it's an area where knowledge needs to be gained and they need to be educated to understand how detrimental it is to make such a statement?
I would say that I'm going to answer that in 2 parts. So yes, there's an area for opportunity. Are they receptive? Well, last year in the fall is the first time we've had a DEI task force that's addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion. Mm-hmm. DEI task force is led by 3 white women. Mm-hmm. Now they have other people at the table like myself, but I'm not a leader. I'm just at the table. When they're making statements like that, I challenge them because I asked them, what resources are we providing for our students? Our students have different needs. If writing is an issue, do we offer our online writing center? So I'm trying to challenge it, but I'm one person.
Mhm.
And then when you have the leadership kind of supporting that mindset,
Right.
it is going to be even harder to educate. And we've had one session about, the DEI, they got this training. And I hear, well, I'm so glad that we had this training. I was raised to love everybody.
Right.
Okay, but you're still not acknowledging your biases.
People have a very difficult time, in my experience, and especially working in mental health. What I see is just an extreme defensive response at first. And, I have very high hopes and expectations of nursing profession to become the people that model how to let go of defensiveness and demonstrate this process of learning things we didn't even know we needed to learn.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I feel that to that statement, for nursing, if we're going to diversify nursing, because our populations do want to see people that look like them, people who understand them,
Of course.
can relate to them. And to do that, we got to start with promoting that diversity, that equity, that justice, inclusion, and increasing our nurse educator workforce.
Having DEI policies and committees all can sound good, but if you're not able to actually have the conversation in a manner that is respectful, and I personally had to come to terms with my own implicit bias, and yeah, it's uncomfortable to acknowledge that we have this, but if we don't acknowledge it, we can't change it. And if we don't have these difficult conversations so that we can become aware of what is a bias, that's perpetuating systemic racism and that's hurting individual people, then, I certainly hope at this time and this stage of our process as a nation and in the state of Virginia, that we can challenge ourselves more to take these very bold steps in these conversations, put the defenses down, listen, learn, and strategize from there.
You're muted, Dr. McDaniel.
Can you repeat that, please, Dr. Daniels? It was difficult to hear what you said.
No, she was telling me I was muted and I was talking to you and saying that
Okay.
and telling you that that was profound, and that, not only to be able to have the conversation, but to also be able to change those policies to hold people accountable, especially in the workplace setting. That's one of my biggest, I advocate for that more than I do anything else. Changing the policies so that people can be held accountable when they do things that are unjust, when they look around and they don't see diversity. But you know how I feel about diversity anyway. It's about the thought process, your diverse thinking that you bring to the table, because you can bring anybody to the table. You can look at them and say, oh, well, that person is, let me go and get this person to be on our committee because that person is Black, or that person is a person of color. But it's not the same for everybody just because they happen to be a person of color. And you bring them on your board and nothing gets done because they did not live that experience. They have no earthly idea. Now, let me just say for you, Dr. Daniels, I lived in Churchill. So I'm very familiar with Churchill and very familiar with how those the people that were living there they literally were marginalized. They were pushed out. And the things that happened to other people and the opportunity for other people, it did not happen for us over there. So when you talk about Dr. Montague doesn't like the word marginalized, and neither do I anymore. But that's what happened to us. We were pushed out. So I can relate to what you were talking about. And also now here's where Dr. Montague and I differ. She lived in a rural setting where she interacted with the white people in her rural setting. We did not. I'm from Claremont, Virginia, proudly from Claremont, Virginia, a little town in Surrey County. We did not, in my area, we did not mingle. Now, Surrey being the city part of our rural setting, that had one traffic light at the time that blinked red on one side and yellow on the other. The people that lived there may have mingled with people a little bit more than we did in Claremont. But in Claremont, the Black people lived in one section and the white people lived in another section, and we did not commingle. So that's where we differ. So even with that, Dr. Montague and I would bring a total different thought, diversity of thought to the table. So that's my little 2 cents that I wanted to add.
Dr. McDaniel, I'd like to build off of what you said, especially being here in a rural setting in Virginia. It's completely unrealistic to expect one Black person or person of color to be able to represent an entire population, especially because of the defensiveness and the resistance that can show up if a person does try to bring something forward. When you're talking about small towns and small town politics, people become afraid of, they don't want that emotional discomfort. Not everybody is an activist. Not everybody is going to speak up to the degree that Dr. Daniels says that she speaks up, right? And then this allows patterns to perpetuate. So I think when people are on committees or are involved in promoting change, we need to be sure that the proper support is in place, that it is truly that the opinions that are going to be expressed are truly going to be supported and not resisted. Mm-hmm. And otherwise people become, what I have experienced in this rural setting is people become very leery of saying anything because they become afraid that about their job being compromised or their grandchildren being harassed in school or, different things like that, that how are we going to push through this? And that's what I would expect these leadership groups to help us push through, by demonstrating that there are safe spaces to talk about these things in a raw and real fashion, and that we can then let that ripple out into the community, with the leadership support.
Yeah, and it's going to have to be a community effort anyway now, considering that we all are in Virginia. Mm-hmm. And even though the critical race theory is not being taught in our schools, I am very concerned about what is going to happen as far as children really learning about the history. I mean, they still need to know it. Mm-hmm. And so, that's going to be a challenge.
Dr. Montague, Dr. Daniels, and Dr. McDaniel, we are approaching our end time that we said where we need to wrap up. So are there any I know there's just so much more that we can say. And if you are willing to come back for another panel discussion, you're welcome to come back anytime to Operation F.L.O.W, because we love promoting these conversations. But are there any final words you'd like to say as we wrap up today?
I'd just like to say to Dr. McDaniel, used in the context you did today, I can agree that was marginalized, that they were pushed out. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And yes, there's so much more to say. And even as I sit here and participate and listen, I realize that we all do have our own biases, and sometimes we see racism, race relations so differently that we may not be able to actually be a proponent for everybody out there, like I said, and to actually step up to the plate in the matter that we need to do at the time we need to. We might have to come back and think about it and go back and say something. And it is true when you look back at the way things have gone, that people are sometimes afraid to speak up because of repercussions. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you as well. And I would love to come back and continue this conversation. There is so much to say.
Yes.
I do agree with Dr. Montague that, you know, if you are human, you are biased in some way. Whether implicit or explicit, you have a bias about something. And, you know, having the support you need or fear of repercussion, all of that can be a barrier to you advocating for anti-racism, you know, especially in our profession. So, you know, I feel that it's so much we can bring to the table and have our voices heard in this forum. And, you know, thank you again for having me. And I would love to come back and participate.
Thank you.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that you would love to come back, because we're going to do a part 2. so you will be back. But, you know, I always leave us with the same words. They're from the great late Congressman John Lewis. And that is, if you see something that is unjust, not right, unfair, say something, do something, get into trouble, good trouble, necessary trouble. That's always my wrap up. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.